Hi, Gloria Donahue, and welcome back to Nana's Cookery. Here we are in my kitchen. I cook just like you do. There's nobody else. I do all the work, and then we do all the eating. So it's fun to have you here. We had the pleasure a number of years ago to visit Spain. We were there about 19 days. We had a wonderful time. I highly recommend visiting Spain. We went to Cordoba, Madrid, Barcelona, which we loved, Toledo. Granada. Is worth to fly to Spain just to go to Granada and go home. You'd have a wonderful time. So it's fabulous. And while we were there, we ate gazpacho a lot. It is a cold soup, usually made with tomato, peppers, and onions. And sometimes there's a white gazpacho made with cucumbers. But today I'm going to make the recipe that I came up with. Well, actually, I copied it from Epicurious, that I found I really liked, because of all the gazpachos we ate, some of them were as thick as applesauce, some of them were very thin. They were all different, but they were all delicious. I'm going to be cutting some vegetables now, and then we'll come back after I get them all ready. You don't need to stay while I'm cutting all the vegetables. But this is, for instance, a red onion. And so I took off the, the hard peel on the end, and I cut it in half, and it calls for 1-inch pieces. So I'm just going to cut off that other end, and then I'm just going to go along like this to get my inch pieces. And I'm going to do that with a number of onions. The tomatoes call for plum tomatoes, and you just cut them in half. And so I have to do that to all the tomatoes. Again, I'm going to cut them into inch pieces. So I'm going to go around and cut out the ribs, and then I'm going to cut them in 1-inch pieces. And when I next see you again, they'll be ready to go in the oven. Our vegetables are almost ready to go in the oven. I say vegetables, but of course tomatoes are a fruit. The tomatoes are the easiest thing to do, because even 4 pounds, you just slice them in half. You don't have to peel them, you don't have to seed them, so that goes very quickly. The onion you saw went pretty quickly. What takes the most time is the peppers. You're cutting off the ends, you're cutting out the ribs, and you're cutting them in 1-inch pieces. I have the peppers and the onions in one pan with edges. These happen to be both jelly roll pans, but you need something with a lip up, because there's going to be some juice. And the tomatoes are in the other pan. This will probably be the healthiest soup that you ever make. As you see, you don't have to roast the peppers. All you do is peel the onions and cut them. It's really a wonderful, wonderful soup, and it freezes very well, because it says this makes enough for 10, and I'm just going to have it for my husband and myself. Now, it calls for 4 pounds of plum tomatoes. And if you'll notice, plum tomatoes are very meaty, and that's why they're used in cooking rather than the regular eating tomato. So it calls for 5 large red peppers, but you only roast 4 of them. You save the rest for trim tomorrow. And the same thing with the red onions. You put 3 medium red onions in to roast and save 1 for tomorrow night. Now I'm going to take half a cup of olive oil, of extra virgin olive oil, and I'm going to divide it between the 2 pans and just kind of dribble it over the vegetables. Now, the original recipe said cook for 50 minutes at 450, turning the pan about halfway through. Well, I almost lost them, folks, because the first time I made it, I was making it for a luncheon, and I took their word for it, 50 minutes. While I went over, I almost burned the house down, because that was much longer than I needed. I'm going to just have to gauge it this time. I can't tell you till they came out. And remember, everybody's oven is a little different. So when you're trying a new recipe, always check on it before they say, because you're not quite sure. Might be a little longer, might be a little less. We're going to put the other 1/4 cup in over the peppers and the onions. And this is what cooks have to put up with. I did all this work. My director said, "Are you done yet? My eyes are really burning." Yeah, my heart bleeds for him, folks. Absolutely bleeds for him. And now we do some salt. And you know the theory of doing salt really high? People say, well, why do chefs do that? Well, scientifically, the higher up you sprinkle, the greater the area that it will cover. So they're not doing it just for fun. They're just doing it so they don't have to do it all over again. Okay, so we'll put that in the oven. The vegetables have roasted. It says do it until they're, done, till you can stick a sharp knife through and they seem like they're done. And they start to char. You want a little bit of char, but you obviously wouldn't want a whole lot. You put the whole thing. Now, the original recipe called for putting half of it in a processor with a cup of water, doing it, taking it out and doing the other. I have a stick blender that I can use for soup, so I'm going to do it all at one time. You could either use a blender, you could use a processor, you could use a stick blender, but you'll need something because you basically want to chew these vegetables up now. And there's some juice in there from the oil from the vegetables, so we're going to put everything into the pan. Now the onions and the peppers took less time than the tomatoes, and I did keep an eye on it. And each time I opened it, the smoke alarm went off because we're talking about hot, and usually fat is usually involved. If it's over 400 degrees, like cooking pork or something, my smoke alarm is going to go off because it's over my oven. So we had to put on the fans. So we've gotten the peppers and the onions. Now you can see this is what the tomatoes look like. They're done and they started to char, but it's not a real heavy char because that would certainly change the taste of it. And you can see there's juice from the tomatoes and the original olive oil. And we'll get it all in this. I want to get all that fat and everything that was, all those juices in there. But remember, that's why you need a rimmed pan, because there are going to be some juices and oil. So now we're going to put, the whole recipe calls for 2 cups of water. I'm doing it all at one time, so I'm going to put in the 2 cups of water at one time. And now I'm going to use my stick blender, and this is going to take a while, so I'll show you when it's done. Our gazpacho has been pureed, and now I'm going to put it in a smaller pan, which will take up less room in the refrigerator because it has to chill all night. And then before we have it for dinner tomorrow night, I will add another cup of water. I will add 3 tablespoons of sherry vinegar, and if you don't have sherry vinegar, you could use a red wine vinegar, and a teaspoon of a hot pepper sauce, and that would be your choice. Then you put them into bowls and you serve it with extra little bowls, either combined or separate little bowls of chopped cucumber, chopped red pepper, and chopped red onion. I hope you've enjoyed coming here today. I've certainly enjoyed having you, so you go out and have a good day. Bye-bye. Don't forget to subscribe. He tells me that all the time. This man is such a dragon on me. I love to hear from you. I love to get your comments. And please give me your first name and your continent so I can put you on my towel. Bye-bye.